Hi everyone, this is Nadia Spencer and welcome back again to my hobby channel. Last week I painted all the model details with acrylics and also applied some heavy dust effects with Umbral enamels. In this third episode we will cover color variation with oil paints. Also we will apply a general wash to define and outline all the model details, and finally we will create with acrylics some chipping effects over the tank. Alright, today's video will begin with oil rendering. To start applying color variation, first I prepare the oil colors. I use a piece of cardboard to place a small amount of each color. This will absorb the excess of oil and I will be able to use only the paint. I take the following references: white color from Winsor & Newton, yellow, cinnabar green, tallow blue, burnt amber, raw amber, and black. In this case I choose colors for different purposes. Some colors to give variation to the olive drab and another few to apply them over the earth effects. The upper colors will be placed in the green surface, and the brownish and darker tones will be placed on shadow areas or on dust accumulation. To start with the oil rendering, I use enamel thinner to moisten the surface. This is going to help us to prevent the oil to get very sticky to the surface, and it will be easy to blend them. I apply small amounts of each color. It's crucial to avoid creating patterns, so I try to place them randomly. I place the lighter tones first and later the darker ones on the recesses and holes. For blending the oils, I take a rounded brush, more thinner, and I make circular movements. I blend the colors carefully, and I clean the brush constantly. If not, paint will mix together and you will only get an ugly brown color over your model. You can see that I don't remove completely the paint. In fact, I leave a small but obvious layer of color. Once all these plates are completed, I repeat the process and give to the surface a second pass. And this is the basic approach I take with oil rendering. I try to vary the tones I use on each area to create different contrast and color filters. On the driver and radio operator hatches, I decide to include the red color to get a different shade. I proceed with the same approach and I repeat the oil rendering process. Moving to the front ammo plate, I place the lighter colors on the upper parts and I place the amber tones on the fenders and glasses. Also, I applied black oil below of the gun support. For these plates, I take a flat brush and blend the oils in vertical movements and downwards. Please notice that I try to not to give a brush stroke twice in the same place. Well, now oil rendering is finished. Once this technique is applied, the model gets instantly a very interesting shade. Much complex than before, because each plate gets dozens of shades, something very similar to small filters. Umbral dust left the model very flat and this is the best way to correct it. Alright, to increase all the details and volumes, and also to give depth to the model, I apply an oil wash to the tank. There are plenty of options on the market. All of them are very nice, but this time I go for a custom oil mix. I take burnt amber and black oil colors and I mix them in a 50% ratio. Also, to get a good fluid consistency, I add enamel thinner until I feel it's ready. With a fine brush, I start applying the paint on the model. You can check the dilution of your oil wash now. The wash should flow nicely through the recesses. I apply the paint on all the raised details. Here, for example, I begin with the engine deck and all the parts like screws, fuel caps, handles and tools. Once paint is dry to the touch, I take enamel thinner and I start cleaning the excess of paint. Sometimes it might be hard, but the key of this technique is not to remove completely the wash. If we look for a good result, we can create also some streaking or grime effects. If you remember, I applied a setting coat of varnish on the model. This makes easier to blend the washes. This technique is a must to apply on scale models. Pink wash gives to the model a great definition with a minimal effort. For example, the engine grille is defining by itself just by leaving a bit of wash. With the turret, I focus and extend the wash on the hatches, periscopes and viewfinders. Also, apart from removing the wash from undesired places, I use the excess of oil to create a few stains or grime effects around the hatches area. Applying pin washes on these areas will get extra depth. In the rest of pieces, I just keep going with the previous approach. So there you have the final result with the pin wash completely finished. The model kit has volumes better defined and a lot of details raised. Now all the color variation and definition has been completed. To create chipping, I use a fine detail brush. In this case, I take a 0001. The most important thing on this technique is to have a very sharp brush tip. This condition will make the difference and will make easier to paint details. Its tip is in perfect shape. For representing chipping, I like to use some kind of brown reddish tones. With this model, I chose whole red and burnt red acrylics from Vallejo. On the model, I start drawing scratches on the engine grille handles. I start drawing small dots with irregular shapes. This type of colors will represent very accurately the scratched steel on the primer coat of World War II vehicles. Creating and drawing scratches is something easier than it seems. Personally, I don't like to apply too much chipping. Using some logic tips, you can know which places are good to apply scratches on them. On the front armor, I start applying chipping on the main edges of the tank. Basically, the places are raised details, edges of the main armor, handles, edge of moving pieces like hatches, lift hooks, protectors, and so on. And I try to paint each piece with a different shape. This will make it more realistic. Also, I start chipping on the hull. Here, there is a joint between the main armor and the extra armor plate. If I draw some chips here and there, these pieces will be better defined. I don't worry excessively about chipping shape. On the spare wheel support, and because it was a field improvement, I increased the chipping level. Again, with this same technique, I keep drawing small dots and I combine them with small lines. These areas were used by the crew to get inside the tank, so they suffered more stress and they were more deteriorated. I begin drawing small lines and small touches with the brush. On real vehicles, the more chipped areas are the closer part to the hatches, and in this occasion, I create a lot of chips and scratches on these areas. Again, to get the general definition, I outline the edges, and later I blend the effect by breaking the pattern on the surface with small dots. Also, I try to focus my efforts on the center of a piece, inner part of the hatches, and periscope protectors. A good tip for creating chipping is to use old brushes. If you combine your fine detail brushes with your old, hard and worse ones, you can achieve pretty interesting effects. These old brushes create some kind of micro chipping when applied by small touches and scratching the model surface. This technique becomes similar to the standard dry brushing. On the upper part of the main gun, I use an old brush to create some random chips. To create chipping on tools and raw steel parts, I create a darker mix. I add flat black from Vallejo to the whole red color. With the same dilution, I paint the chipping effect on the main tools on the engine deck. US World War II vehicles used to paint their tools and accessories with the same olive drab color. This, from a modeler's point of view, becomes very interesting, because you can create different chipping effects on the same model. The same fact happens with the wooden parts of these tools, so I take brown sand color to act as a wooden tone to represent some scratches. This time, because of the wooden material, I try to create a different texture. And the best way to represent wooden texture is to create thin and long lines. Maybe it is only my opinion, but this color combination gets really cool, isn't it? Okay, so we are finished for today. We have applied plenty of techniques, all of them focused in increasing the contrast and definition and in changing the Sherman volumes and three-dimensional feeling. Oil rendering creates tones of different shades. Pin washes enhance the general look and the chipping effects increase the surface texture of the model. All of them combined together create a nice looking effect of realism on the model. In the next video I will change my way to dust and mud effects. Oil colors, pigments and textures will be your main characters in the video. Please consider to give it a like and subscribe if you find this video interesting. So, thanks for watching and I see you in the next one.